So we're going to get into climate graphs. By now, I would imagine you know that the equator is warm, and between the two tropics, Cancer in the north, Capricorn in the south, things are a little bit warmer. Things do fluctuate a little bit more than they do on the equator, and as you get up to the disgustingly cold place, the Arctic, and the place where the penguins live, the Antarctic in the south, we're going on a journey from the equator to the really, really cold places. So by the end of this video, you should have a good idea of the kind of ins and outs into these climate kind of areas. So we'll talk about tropical climates, we'll talk about temperate climates, we'll talk about arid climates, we'll talk about polar climates. And by then, if I showed you one of these climate graphs, I would hope that you would be able to kind of give me an idea and explain why this is likely either tropical or temperate or what. Okay? So let's have some fun. Let's get into climates. All right. Is that good? Oh yeah, there we go. Sticky. So we're going to start tropical. We're going to start where it's warm. Right now it's getting warm outside here, but not like this. If any of you have spent time in the tropics, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, a guy like me living in the tropics for 2 years, I should have bought stock in sunscreen before I went. Not smart. Anyways, to be tropical, to be considered a tropical climate, you have to have an average temperature of over 18 degrees every single month of the year. So we're talking averages, remember. Okay, so there may be some anomalies when we get to where we are temperate cold, for example. Our temperature goes below this, of course, but we're talking about averages, okay? So every average has to stay above 18 degrees Celsius. So you can imagine where that is, kind of close to the equator, all right? Where things are warm, more direct sunlight, nothing really changes, okay? So we're gonna separate each of these main titles. So tropical would be a main title. I'm gonna go through 8 different types, okay? So tropical could be tropical wet or tropical wet and dry. Which one do you think experiences more precipitation? That's tropical wet, okay? So this would be hot and stinky all year, and this would be hot and stinky for about half the year. The rest of the year would be dry, okay? So when we talk about monsoons later, think of tropical wet and dry, where it's incredibly wet and then it's incredibly dry, okay? It's kind of, those are their seasons. Where tropical wet, like where I lived in Malaysia for 2 years, it was 30 degrees every day and it rained every day, okay? I thought it was boring after a while, because I like variety, okay? Now, most of them would be between the tropics, okay? Most of these places, but there is a little bit of a kind of leeway thing here. So we'll talk about tropical wet first. So tropical wet, to be tropical, it has to have 18 degrees every month, okay? But there's no slowing the rainfall. It's consistently wet. Now keep in mind, there are no climate graphs that are dark, okay? So all the ones you will see in my videos, you'll have to check out in my notes just to kind of cross-reference. But imagine a flat line of temperature over 18 and a flat bunch of bars representing precipitation, precipitation, okay? So heavy rain all year. So you can see these bars, that's good. The temperature line, just to give you an idea, is right here, and that's 20 degrees right here. So this is about 25 degrees. Nothing really changes. That's definitely over 18. And you can see precipitation measured in millimeters, 500, 500, 500, 600, 600, 600, 500, 500, 500, 500, okay? Every month over 500 millimeters. Just to give you an idea, Winnipeg's annual precipitation is around 700 to 800. Okay, so in 2 months, they've already got more than Winnipeg gets in a year, right? Pretty rainy. Tropical wet and dry. These are kind of those, again, almost buffer zones. You're getting away from the equator. Keep in mind when we looked at that map, all tropical rainforests are right here. So tropical wet, rainforest, putting them together, they get a lot of rain and they're really hot. That's probably where we are, right? Tropical wet and dry, generally you're going to get a very high rainfall in the summertime and a very low rainfall in the wintertime, okay? Now that is perfect when we get into monsoons at the later. So this is one, again, the bars you can see. I'll highlight the temperature line. It's about here, and it is at about 30 degrees, so yes, there. But you can see the very big difference between less than 100, less than 100, less than 100, less than 100, just over 100 to 700, 600. Very different rainfalls. It's not like they're not going to get any, but it's really different depending on the year, okay? Dry climates. So these are the opposite. They're still warm, like it gets warm in the Sahara Desert, but it doesn't get very wet, okay? So these are all dry climates, 500 millimeters. Keep in mind that tropical wet, they got that in basically every single month. This would be annually, right? So we can divide these into arid and semi-arid. Which one do you think receives less precipitation? Yeah, that's right, the arid. Okay? So you don't walk out of a rainforest and into a desert. Okay? There's got to be a little bit of a buffer zone. So you're going to find that this leads into that, okay? Which leads in from the tropical wet and dry. Obviously it gets wetter and then drier, and then all of a sudden it gets a little bit wetter again when we get to the temperates, okay? So more evaporation. These would be deserts. These would be kind of the savanna, enough rain to support small trees and bushes and things like that, okay? So arid, first of all, the really, really dry one. Notice 10 to 30 degrees north and south. Remember when I did that in one of my other videos, between these two is where you find every single desert in the world, okay? That's pretty much consistent. So anything less than 250 millimeters a year, that would be considered arid. Okay, now I don't need you to take a ruler or a calculator and calculate it all up. It's just kind of eye it out, okay? For example, they do it for us, but the precipitation annually is 18 millimeters. Okay, so you're having a hard time seeing this. The temperature line does one of these, okay? So we're still in the north, but you can hardly see any of the blue. Now, if this wasn't there, I would imagine you'd be able to take care of this being an arid place anyways, right? Semi-arid, these are between 250 and 500. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because you have to kind of know if it's over 250 or less than 250. Is it over 500 now? Can it be arid? So there are rules, and these are what I'm presenting right now. So you kind of got to cancel things out as you go, and we'll do that together when we finish all these. Okay? So in Athens, Greece, a place that I've been a couple times myself, beautiful place, nice euros, okay? Again, 402 millimeters, you can see that it does fluctuate, but the percentage, these bars look big, but it all depends on the numbers beside, right? So it is very hot there, but it's also very dry, but not as dry as the previous. So here's what I would do. Find a ballpark, okay? So let's say 40, kind of right in the middle. How many of these months have at least 40 millimeters? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times 40 quickly. How many have 60? 1, 2, okay? You're gonna find that it's pretty easy to get over 250. I would say on a test situation, I won't make it kind of very close, but not sure if we can have tests. Temperate climate, now we're getting to our neck of the woods, okay? So we're going to talk about higher latitudes. We're out of the tropics now. We're getting into the United States and Europe, generally above 30 degrees north. So it's 30 degrees north, quickly, hang on. 30 degrees north, I just checked, is about where Texas starts and Mexico ends, okay? Still pretty warm. So these climates can be divided into temperate mild and temperate cold. Guess which one we are? Yeah, that's right, temperate cold. Temperate mild, now this is huge. Temperate mild occurs in both hemispheres, okay? While temperate cold only exists in the north. Now if you take a good look at the map of the world, where would you find more land? If I went from the equator and looked above and below, where would I find more land? Okay, take a look at a map right now, all right? Huge continental places in the north, not a lot of continental places in the south. And when it comes to kind of temperate cold areas, which are around 45 degrees north and south, there's really nothing besides a little bit of New Zealand and a little bit of Argentina that exist at 45 degrees south even, where we've just started the continents. That's even lower, that's Minneapolis, okay? So, temperate mild, yeah. Okay, very important rule, this is the rule. Basically, do your temperatures stay above -3 or do they go below? That's gonna be the separating factor. Precipitation really doesn't come into factor here. It's a temperature thing. So are you warmer than -3 or are you not? If you aren't, you're in a place like Winnipeg, temperate cold. Temperate climates, you've seen this before. This is, again, you know, let's pay attention to one of these. Once you look at the notes, there's two lines of temperatures. This is the average high, that's the average low. I would never do this on a test situation, and I always tell people when I'm teaching this unit, let's just focus on one of the lines and pretend the other one isn't there. It really doesn't make a difference, okay? Does this go below -3? Okay, it's temperate mild, right? Polar climates, we're getting into the penguins and the disgustingly cold places, okay? So they're very low temperatures in the summer and extremely cold temperatures in the winter. They can also be separated into two. We're going to talk about tundra and what's called ice caps. Okay, so this is a temperature thing too. Tundra never goes above 10, but ice caps never go above 0. Now, think about it. When does ice start to melt? That's right, 0. Okay, so that's why they're icy for the whole year, because it never gets warmer than 0. Okay, tundra would be places like northern Canada, like where there is a little bit of summer, but not enough to kind of do what we're down here, where they don't have big forests and stuff. The trees are small, if at all, right? Nice rhyme. So here's a great question. January, December, June and July. The temperature line does this. Warmer here, colder here. Where are we? That's right, the southern hemisphere. Okay? Opposite seasons, remember. That's another thing that these things tell you. Precipitation, a lot. So again, this one makes a difference with the two lines. If you're dealing with the top one, it would be very different answers. So that's why let's deal with the top one, okay? It goes above 0 once, twice, 3 times, that's enough. It goes above 0, but never over 10. We're dealing with a tundra climate, okay? So, these are some just things for you to talk about. What I would recommend is, what does the temperature line tell you? Okay, is it above 18 degrees all year? If not, can't be tropical. Is it above -3 all year? Okay, you know, it can't be temperate cold. Is it severely dry? Then you might be dealing with that, right? So these are just some quizzes here. So we talked about this one. This one here, okay, top right. Temperature line starts at -10, goes to +25. So, can this place be tropical? Doesn't stay above 18 all year. Both tropicals out the window. Could this place be arid? Well, here's 200 millimeters. 1, 2, 3, you're already at 600 millimeters. Can't be arid. Could this place be polar? Tundra or polar? Well, goes up to 25. We're in temperate country, okay? So does it stay above -3 or does it dip below -3 just once? Goes down to -10, we're dealing with temperate cold, okay? So just follow the rules along and you should be able to figure it out. Okay, this one here, again, don't be fooled by it starting at 10 and ending at 30, okay? It's not above 18. It's 1 month, 600, definitely too wet to be arid, definitely too warm to be tundra or ice cap. It has to be a temperate. Is it above -3 or not? It stays above -3 all year, temperate mild. Okay? Last thing I want to talk about, the sudden wet season, monsoon. Generally, we talked early on in the course, place in India, the rainiest place on the planet every single year. This would be it. Okay, so remember tropical, wet and dry, right? This is basically, I want you to know that it rains a ton in the summer and it's very dry in the winter. Remember sea breeze, land breeze? This is a very good example of that, of how low and high pressure systems really, really drive this monsoon season. So this is hard to see, I realize. The summer's on top, winter's on the bottom. But just the fact that India is in the north and starting at about, the bottom tip of India is at about 10 degrees north. So they would experience a little bit of fluctuation, okay? So enough so that the rotation and the tilt of the earth would affect them a little bit more. So as in the summertime when they're tilted more towards the sun, the land of India is that low pressure, okay? During the summertime, you would be creating that low pressure system here, and along the ocean would be that high pressure system there, and it would be driving the window, remember, high to low. In the wintertime, because now we're tilted away from the sun in the north, the low would be down here, and the high would be up here, and it would be driving the wind in the opposite direction. And what the result is either a tremendous amount of rain or a very severe lack of it. This is the rainiest place on the planet every single year. Okay? They deal with this stuff. So, winter monsoon, everything on that with the highs and the lows, that's what I was talking about. Okay? Again, you can watch that again if you have hard. This just explains what I was doing with the arrows and the highs and lows. But basically, if you look at it, place Cherrapunji, January, December, okay, June, July, we were talking about millimeters. They're talking about inches and centimeters. So in July, 350 centimeters, okay, 140 inches. That's 3 meters. I can't even get the third meter in this classroom. This is a meter stick. 3 of these in July. Only 2.5 in June. A little dry, okay? They have the potential to get almost 5 stories of rain in the year. So find a building, count 5 stories, and that's maybe what India gets in that time. So I've been in a place with a monsoon season, and it's crazy. I was walking up to my shins on the streets in Vietnam one year, and I mean, here I am traveling in Vietnam for a month, and I'm there during the monsoon season. Really smart, but it was kind of neat. I've never experienced anything like it. Walking around shin deep on the streets. It's crazy. Okay. Stay healthy, stay well. One more.